Hey everybody, this is Robert, and I had some thoughts on my mind, and I've been wanting to do more stuff with YouTube on my YouTube channel. So I was gonna spit some thoughts I had about the Ultimate Fighting Championship. UFC is the world's premier mixed martial arts organization, and the Fertitta brothers, the past owners, sold the business, or at least a portion of the business in the debt, to some large financial group or another. And that also includes part of it being bought by certain movie stars and just kind of odd, weird things like that. So something that's on my mind is that, as fans, I thought this is a good moment for, while this new conglomerate is, cutting costs by making the UFC less international and cutting a bunch of the, administrative staff and things like that, I think it's a wonderful time for us to petition them to take better care of the fighters. Now, brain encephalopathy, I think I'm pronouncing that right, is a syndrome and a condition that happens through repeated head injuries. Concussions are the ones that are been most recently and most thoroughly studied, but even smaller impacts are known to cause the same sort of damage over time. And for a UFC fighter starting out might only make a few $1,000s to show up for a fight, and a few $1,000s if they win. And they might fight only a couple times a year. UFC is notoriously heavy-handed. There's been allegations that newer fighters have told them, "Well, I'm injured." They say, "Okay, well, you're cut then," which in essence really almost forces the fighter to fight if they want to look out for the career. Fight injured, which is of course terrible. So, I've just been writing out some things that I think we should petition them. So, first thing I want to say is I'm going to create a hashtag for this, and it's hashtag fans stand up. And basically, it's us petitioning the new owners of the UFC, since there's a change and there's changes going on, say that we want to see these guys better taken care of. To make such little money at the lowest levels is unheard of in professional sports, and that's been known about. The fact that these guys are getting concussed, that's known about, and so maybe rugby's worse, maybe boxing's worse in terms of different, football's worse. But these guys are still taking huge impacts in every fight most of the time, and I'm sure they're taking much more than that in training. So in my mind, pay needs to be upgraded. This is one of the things that the fans are asking for when the fans stand up. Pay needs to be upgraded. Although the UFC does take care of injuries to a certain extent, I would love to see these men and women, these brave fighters, get full-time health insurance. And I'm talking about rigorous third party, and this can be put into something where it takes the place of part of their camps, and I'm going to get to drugs, but things like that. Negative parts of the sport, like weight cutting and performance enhancing drug use, those are other really detrimental things to fighters. Cutting weight is horrible for your kidneys. Taking steroids can be horrible for you. So one of the things is I think we should petition them to have, same day weigh-ins. You fight at the weight you're supposed to be. You stay at the weight you're supposed to be at. There's a maximum weight, and the weigh-in is the same as the day before. There's no bloating up. There's no starving your body. They don't let these men and women take IVs anymore. So people are still cutting the huge amounts of weight without the aid of, so it's actually worse for your kidneys now. There's less damage reduction, and that's absolutely ridiculous. So I'd like to see these people have doctors and people they could rely on, healthcare professionals that would help them navigate the dangers and pitfalls of these things as we begin to transition into and these could be multi-stabilities, like multi-level ways that we change things, so it all feeds into each other. When you have a fighter who is being told the right things about weight cutting and diet and exercise and drug use and everything like that, well then the UFC can use that for promotion. It can use that as a way to, build the business to people who might not normally want to see it, who watching football with their husbands is maybe the most they ever do. And I'm not going to go too far into that. I kind of have a visceral reaction to the poor treatment of these folks, whether it be through the bad practices of drugs or weight cutting or not enough pay or no health insurance, is that when I think people who love fighting, maybe men more significantly, you kind of know after having watched this for 30 years, maybe done some training, maybe know somebody who's done some training. A UFC fighter is like, it's becoming like almost a cultural myth. Like, oh man, that guy's got a UFC fighter for his bodyguard. Don't fuck with him. Like, if you meet a UFC fighter in the club, you're going to meet somebody, as a fan, you're going to meet somebody that if you started trouble with, they're going to take whatever you're best at and take you out of that element and beat you. So unless you're some sort of world-class grappler and striker yourself, regardless of their preference for fighting, they're going to be able to outmaneuver you. You'll never beat a UFC fighter in a fight. And of course, there's exceptions to every rule. I know that famous boxers have been knocked out by brawlers, etc., etc. But to me, it's so disrespectful because I know that these people are like trained predators who have an amazingly difficult job. And we respect them as fans, and that's why I bring up the cultural myth thing. It's open like, oh my god, like, you could never ever take out a UFC fighter. But Dana White and the people that have run the company with them has set these standards, talking out their mouth with one side like they're great buddies with these guys and treating them like shit the rest of the time. And seriously, fuck Dana White. I cannot believe we got a change in ownership and they didn't get rid of the worst problem in the UFC. Dana White has been writing the UFC's history in the minds of its fans, telling them what they should believe, what is right, how great they are, all this different stuff for so long. And you know what? We're just so sick of the guy. We cannot stand hearing anything he has to say. He practically ruins the experience single-handedly. And if the UFC wants to boost viewership, try taking him out of the equation. Maybe for like a month, see what happens. But that's enough of that. Another thing I wanted to talk about in fan stand-up is, for God's sakes, let these people smoke marijuana. This is an issue with, okay, so they bust them for catching steroids, and I think there's probably a lot of complicity and not busting them too, in the side of the organization and certain, different athletic organizations, state organizations, and so forth. But marijuana is not a fight-enhancing performance-enhancing drug. It's not. It'll make you slower. It might give you a good idea or two, but in no way is going to give you some sort of edge. It's probably the opposite. So, for this to be something that these people get fines and can't fight over is just totally ridiculous, especially in this day and age where we have states that have completely legalized it. It's ridiculous. So, the last thing I want to say on this is it's a wonderful time to be a UFC fan. The fights are better than they ever have been. For a few years, these guys have been pulling off moves that we used to only see in kung fu movies growing up. One of the fights on tomorrow night, the main card fight, Dos Anjos versus Ferguson. Dos Anjos is one of my favorite fighters, and he can pull off spinning kicks and flying kicks and crazy shit like nobody's business, and it's amazing. And you know what? There's 25 of these guys, and guys and girls in the UFC now who can do this stuff, and it's freaking amazing. And so the fights are better than it has ever been, and I think everybody who's been a fan for a decade or more knows that. Like, we love to talk about the great old days, GSP, Fedor, blah blah blah. No, those guys are nothing compared to the skill level we're seeing now from the kids who grew up watching this. It's just amazing. And I just want to see the organization respect the fighters the same way the fans do. And that's what this is about. is fans stand up. We're standing up to the UFC. We're standing up for the fighters, the toughest people in the world who don't get to take the day off because they're sick. They still have to go out and try to kick somebody's ass or get their ass kicked. Have to go in 6 days a week or more training for this almost every week of their lives. And I just want to see the organization give them the respect. So that's it. No more weight cutting, real anti-performance enhancing drugs measures, health care, higher pay, especially for the base level. And that's all I gotta say. Fans stand up. You know, hashtag fans stand up. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great night.